In this video, I'm going to show you some different ways of formatting strings in Python. In the documentation, we'll see we have this str.format, and then in the parentheses, we have asterisks, args, and then two asterisks and kw args, which is commonly pronounced as kwargs. Now, I'm not going to get into what args and kwargs are right this moment. We'll get into that when we get to the functions. However, just know that args means I can pass in a variable number of values, and kwargs means that I can pass in a variable number of key value pairs. If we jump into our development environment, we'll see that I have some variables here for name, age, and job, and then I have a person string, and this is the string that we're going to be formatting here. And it says her name is, and then it's got these curly braces here. Well, these curly braces, wherever they're at, is going to be replaced by a value that I pass into it using the format method. And there are a few different ways that we can get the correct values into these curly braces. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in our .format method on our string. And in this method, we are going to pass it the values that we want to replace these curly braces. So for the first one, I want it to be her name. So I'm going to type in the name variable. The second one, I also want to be her name. So I'm going to type in name again. The third one here is the age. So I'm going to type in the age variable. And finally, the fourth one is the job. So I'm going to type in the job variable. And now if I run this, you'll see that it's replaced these curly braces with the correct values that I have in these variables here. So down here, we get the output. Her name is Tina. Tina is 25 years old and a software developer. Another way that we could replace these curly braces is by using indexing. So let's say I want the name variable to be index 2. In the curly braces here, where I want the actual name Tina to go, I would put a 2 to indicate that that is index 2. Then if I wanted age to be in index 0, I would put a 0 in the curly braces where I want age to go. And then finally, if I wanted job to go into index 1, I would put job into index 1. Now you do have to make sure that you don't put more index numbers here than you're going to put variables down here in the format method. So now I can go back into my method and replace these variables with the first index, which will be 0 for age. So age goes in first. And then 1 is for job. So I will put job in second. And this is because if you recall that Python is 0 index. So this is the 0 position, 1 position, and now the 2 position, which I will be replacing with name. And as you can see, this allowed us to use less variables in the format method by reusing the same variable wherever it's going to go multiple times. So when I run this, we'll get the output of her name is Tina. Tina is 25 years old and a software developer again. The next thing that we can do is use a key value pair. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this name variable here. And up here, I'm going to change name to be a variable name underscore name. And I'll do the same thing in this set of curly braces here, underscore name. And I'm just doing the underscore to keep it different from this variable over here. And for age, I will leave it as index 0. And for job, I will leave it as index 1. So that can stay there. But now to replace this underscore name, I'm going to type underscore name equals, and let's make her name Debbie now. So if I run this, we'll get her name is Debbie. Debbie is 25 years old and a software developer. And as you can see here, formatting strings is pretty easy, and using the format method provides you with some flexibility to work with strings. Now, an issue that might arise is this string might be way up somewhere else in the code where you don't remember exactly how it was set up. So another way that we can format these strings, I'm going to go ahead and remove this format method here, is by using an F string. So to use an F string, before the quotes in the string, you would put either a lowercase or uppercase f. And as you'll see, it changed the color of my curly braces from blue to this orange color. And it's giving me errors because this variable right here does not exist. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to the variable name that does exist, name. And this allows us to directly replace this value in the curly braces with the variable without having to use the format method. And for here, I'm going to pass in the age variable. And for the last one here, I'm going to pass in the job variable. So if I run this, we'll now see her name is Tina. Tina is 25 years old and a software developer. Now, personally, I use this method almost exclusively. I almost never use the string.format method, but whatever works for you, whatever's easiest for you, that's what you should use. With string formatting, you can also use format specifiers, which are helpful when you're working with numbers, dates, stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and take all this out, and I'm going to create a variable pi equals 3.141592. Just going to go out to 6 decimal places there. And for my string, I'm going to call it pi string equals the value of pi is approximately, and then I'm going to do my curly braces. And I forgot to add the F at the beginning of it. In the curly braces, I'm going to put pi, and then I'm going to do a colon. And then after the colon, I'm going to put 0.2. And then I'm going to create a print function to output the pi string. And if I run this, because I have this colon 0.2, it's going to only print out 3.1. The value of pi is approximately 3.1. That's because this is telling it to format the decimal place to only show 2 numbers. Now, if I put an F after this 0.2, it'll show it as 3.14 because now it's looking at it as this should be the number of digits after the decimal place. And I could change this to, let's say 4, and we'll see that it gives me 4 decimal places now. You can also use string formatting to add some space either before or after a variable. So if you were trying to print something to the console and we're trying to maybe make it look like a table, and you kind of needed to maybe center up some headings and stuff like that, you could, after the colon, put a right chevron to say that it should be aligned right. And then if I throw a 20 in here and I run this now, you're going to see that it gives me this big old space between the value of pi is approximately and the actual number, because Python has interpreted this to make the space before the number and the number itself total up to 20 characters. To see all the different ways of formatting a string, you can go back into documentation. If we scroll up here, back up to where the string methods header is, there is a link right here called Format String Syntax. And if you click that, it'll bring you to the Format String Syntax header, where it has all the information that you would need about formatting strings and tons of examples.